My sister tried to move her daughter into my apartment for free, but my niece showed up alone and exposed her mother's entire plan. For context, I am 34 years old. I work full-time and have been renting a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood for about 3 years. The second bedroom is my home office, where I do freelance work after my day job to supplement my salary. I also use it on the rare occasions I work from home. My sister, let's call her Sarah, is 31 and lives about 3 hours away with my niece, Emily, who just turned 14. We grew up in a house where things were divided quite unequally. Our parents bailed Sarah out constantly over the years because she had Emily while she was still a minor and didn't finish high school. Even after she supposedly got her life on track, they paid for her car repairs multiple times, covered her rent when she was between jobs, and babysat Emily whenever she needed. I moved out at 22 and paid for everything myself. I don't say this to complain, but so you understand from the start who the golden child of the family was. About 6 weeks ago, Sarah sent me a text asking if I could help Emily with a school project. She needed to interview someone about their career for her English class. The assignment required speaking to a professional in a field that interested her, writing up the interview, and presenting it to the class. Sarah mentioned that Emily was thinking about doing something similar to what I do because she thought it was cool, so she wanted to talk to me. I agreed immediately. Emily is a good kid, and because of the distance, we don't talk all that much. I thought it would be a great way to bond. The night before the interview, I spent about 2 hours thinking of advice that would be useful for a teenager and preparing some work samples she could show that wouldn't violate client confidentiality. I genuinely wanted her to have the best project in the class. The interview was scheduled for a Sunday afternoon via video call. Emily had her questions written in a notebook. She asked about my education, how I got my first job, what a typical day looks like, and what skills matter in my field. I answered everything as thoroughly as I could without being boring. It was supposed to last 30 minutes, but we talked for over an hour because Emily kept asking questions that went beyond the job. That's when the questions started to shift. She asked what neighborhood I lived in and how big my apartment was. She asked about the building's amenities, like if there was a gym or parking garage. She asked how the public transit was and if I felt safe walking alone at night. She asked if there were good schools nearby and what the grocery stores were like. I answered everything because I thought she was just curious about city life. They live in a small town, so I assumed she was fantasizing about living here and following in my footsteps. She asked how much I paid in rent, and I gave her a ballpark figure because I didn't think it was a secret. By the time we finished, I had basically told her everything about my living situation, without realizing what was happening. You probably know where this is going. 2 days later, Sarah called me during my lunch break. She rarely calls during the day. She started by thanking me for helping Emily with her project, saying Emily loved talking to me. Then she mentioned that Emily had fallen in love with my city during our conversation. She couldn't stop talking about how exciting the city was and how many opportunities there were compared to their small town. Then, she dropped the bomb. She said she had been thinking it over, and it would be amazing if Emily could come live with me for the rest of high school. She argued that Emily would have access to better schools, more activities, and a chance to see what city life is like before deciding on college. Sarah added that it would only be for 3.5 years. Since I had the extra room and Emily was low maintenance, she thought it was perfect. She offered to send me $200 a month to help with food and other expenses. I stayed silent for about 10 seconds. Sarah kept filling the silence with more reasons why this was a good idea. She said the high school in their town was okay but not great. She said I could be a mentor to Emily in ways she couldn't because of my career. She said Emily was practically raised already and wouldn't need much supervision. She finished by saying it would be good for Emily to be around someone who has their life in order. I told her I needed to think about it and would call her back. She said okay, but her tone was weird, as if she had expected an immediate yes. I ran the numbers in my head. My rent isn't too high, to be honest. But that is only because I got lucky with a rent-controlled lease. $200 wouldn't even cover the increase in utilities for another person, let alone food, supplies, and everything a teenager needs. Plus, I sometimes travel for work and spend a week away in other cities. I couldn't do that with a high schooler in the house. My home office would have to become Emily's bedroom, which meant losing freelance income or working at the dining table, which isn't very spacious. But beyond the logistics, I couldn't stop thinking about the interview. All those questions about my apartment, my neighborhood, the schools. Emily had been gathering intel, or Sarah had told her what to ask. Either way, it felt like a setup. I called her that afternoon to tell her I couldn't take Emily in. I explained that I didn't have the space, the money, or the lifestyle to care for a teenager. I told her I'd be happy to stay in touch and maybe have Emily visit for a weekend, but moving in wasn't possible. Her voice wasn't as cheerful as when she picked up. She asked why I was being like this. She said I was the only one in the family who could give Emily this opportunity. She started crying, repeating that she was just trying to do better for her daughter. She reminded me of when she helped me move into my first apartment after college. I remembered that. It was 3 hours of lifting boxes, not years of financial support. I told her I was sorry, but the answer was still no. Sarah hung up, saying she had to go. An hour later, my phone started blowing up. My mom sent a text saying she heard the news and was very disappointed in me. My dad sent something similar. The next day, my mom called. She said Sarah was devastated. She added that Sarah had already told Emily she might be moving to the city, and now Emily was disappointed because of me. I asked why on earth she would tell Emily anything before clearing it with me. My mom said it didn't matter, that it was what was best for her. She framed it as the ultimate opportunity for Emily's future. I gave her the same answer I gave Sarah. I am not in a position to be a mother right now, especially to a teenager who already has one. If Sarah wanted a better future for her daughter, she should move to the city herself. But my mom couldn't see it that way. She said Sarah didn't have the same opportunities in life because she had it harder due to things that happened to her. Those things that happened were getting pregnant in high school. That wasn't an accident. She didn't get hit by a bus while saving orphans. My mom called me selfish and a bad sister for mocking Sarah's pain. As far as I know, stating the truth isn't mocking. The messages kept coming all week. Most were from Sarah and my mom suggesting I reconsider. Some were from Sarah's friends who I didn't even know. One said, "Are you setting a bad example for your niece by teaching her that your career is more important than family?" Another asked, "Is it easy for you to do this when you don't have kids and have it so easy in life?" I blocked the strangers and silenced my family. My brother, Mike, messaged me privately, saying he thought I was doing the right thing and to stay strong. It was the only support I got from my immediate family. The worst part is, I started questioning myself. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should find a way to make it work. But every time I thought about it seriously, I came back to the same problems. There was the money, and the fact that I didn't want to be a parent, at least not right now. I would have to give up too much. And I wasn't willing to do that. Emily wasn't an orphan. She wasn't living on the street. Letting her stay here didn't seem like an emergency. And I couldn't get over the fact that Sarah used Emily's school project to inspect my apartment like she was planning a heist. I haven't spoken to Sarah since that call 2 weeks ago, and her messages remain unread. My parents have mostly stopped writing or calling. Emily texted me a few days ago thanking me for the help with her project and said she got an A on the presentation. She didn't mention moving. I don't know if that means she genuinely didn't know about Sarah's plan, or if she knows what her mother is doing is wrong. Update 1. I thought my story wouldn't have a continuation, as things were calming down. But last Sunday morning, while I was still in my pajamas making coffee, there was a knock at my door at 7:45. I looked through the peephole and saw my mom. She doesn't live near the city, but she's lucky I'm an early riser, or my reception would have been much worse. She was also lucky I already had coffee in my hand. Murders have been committed for less. I opened the door and asked what she was doing in the city. She had woken up at 4 in the morning just to drive here and talk in person, all because I wasn't answering her. Well, the message I wanted to convey was that I didn't want to talk. Doing it in person wouldn't change that. She walked in and sat on my sofa without an invitation. Then I noticed Emily in the hallway with a backpack and a duffel bag. My mom signaled for her to come in. Emily looked miserable. Her eyes were red, and she avoided looking at me. My mom started a speech about how she and my dad had been talking and decided Emily would stay with me because it was for the best. I looked at Emily and then told my mother, "Tell me you didn't kidnap her." I wanted to know if Sarah knew they were here because it looked like they had snatched her in the middle of the night. My mom replied that Sarah agreed with this because it was the right thing to do. She continued with arguments about family, sacrifice, and how my grandmother took in a cousin for a year when her parents were divorcing. She said, "You've always been so independent and capable that sometimes you forget others need help." She assured me Emily wouldn't ask for much, just a place to sleep and someone to make sure she went to school. She looked at Emily and asked, "Isn't that right?" Sarah would handle everything else. I wanted to know how she would handle anything from 3 hours away. My mom said Sarah would visit often and stay involved. I asked where Sarah would stay during those visits. "Probably here," my mom said. "There's space in the living room." I asked directly if Sarah planned to move to the city. My mom got defensive and said she didn't know what I was talking about. I asked again. She admitted that Sarah had mentioned possibly relocating if Emily was settled and happy, but that wasn't the point right now. It was the point for me. I wanted to know where she planned to move when she did. My mom didn't have an answer, so I assumed the answer was my apartment. I told her she had to take Emily back home. My mom didn't want to because she didn't want to waste such a long trip. I told her she wasted it the moment she backed her car out of her driveway. Emily started to cry. My mom hugged her and snapped at me. "Look what you're doing to this child." I told her I wasn't doing anything. Sarah, and apparently my mom, were putting her in the middle of something that had nothing to do with her. My mom grabbed her things and told Emily they were leaving. She said she was disappointed, that she didn't raise me to be this way, and that my dad was going to hear about this. With that, they left. I sat on the sofa for an hour staring at the wall. Then I called my brother, Mike, and told him. Then I remembered that Emily's Facebook profile is public. I checked her recent posts. Nothing about moving or being excited for a new school. There was a photo from 3 days ago with 2 friends at a birthday party. I scrolled back further. Emily plays soccer, is in the drama club, and has a group of friends she posts photos with all the time. Nothing indicated she wanted to leave her town. I thought about her face that morning in my apartment. She didn't look excited or hopeful. She looked miserable and ashamed. That afternoon, I received a message on social media from a woman named Teresa. She said she was the mom of one of Emily's friends and needed to tell me something. She clarified that she knew it wasn't her place, but her daughter was worried and wanted her to do something. Teresa told me that Emily had been distressed for a month because her mom was forcing her to go along with the moving plan. She said Emily loved her school and her friends and didn't want to leave. She said Sarah kept telling Emily that her schools weren't good enough and she wouldn't have opportunities if she stayed. Then came the piece of the puzzle that explained everything. Teresa said Emily told her daughter that Sarah planned to move to the city, but didn't have the money to do it. Her plan was to get Emily into my apartment first, and a few months later, move in herself, telling me it would be temporary while she looked for her own place. Teresa remarked that she hadn't heard this herself, but it's what Emily and her friend were talking about. I thanked her. That night, Sarah texted me. She said she heard I made Emily cry, that she didn't understand what was wrong with me, and that she was only trying to give her daughter opportunities, while I stood in the way because I valued my apartment more than my niece. I didn't respond immediately. I thought for a while. Then I wrote back that I knew she planned to move to the city, and that Emily was just her foot in the door. That was why I wasn't going to let her manipulate either of us. Sarah called instantly. She started screaming before I could even say hello. She claimed I was making things up and turning everyone against her. She swore she never planned to move and that I was paranoid. She added that I always thought I was better than her because I had a better job and lived in a nicer place. I let her finish. Then I clarified that I had spoken to people who knew what she was plotting, and I wasn't going to argue. I told her Emily deserved more than being used as a pawn. If Sarah wanted to move to the city, she should save up and do it on her own instead of trying to guilt-trip me into housing her. Sarah finished by saying I was a terrible sister and aunt. I haven't heard from her since. My mom called yesterday and said I caused a huge fight in the family and that Sarah was devastated. I replied that she brought it on herself. My mom insisted I didn't understand how hard Sarah's life is. I told her I understand, but that doesn't mean I have to fix it by giving up my home. Update 2. Yesterday, something happened that I didn't expect, and now I don't know what to do with the information I have. Emily appeared at my apartment alone. It was Tuesday, around 4:30. I had just arrived from work and was checking my mail in the lobby when someone said my name. I turned around, and there was Emily with a backpack. She took the bus from her town by herself. The trip took almost 4 hours. I took her upstairs and asked if Sarah knew where she was. She said no. She told her mom she was going to a friend's house to work on a project and staying over. The friend, not the same one with the mother from the other day, was covering for her. But she had to be back by tomorrow afternoon or her mom would find out. I asked why she had come. She sat on my sofa and burst into tears. Not like the time with my mom, but truly heartbroken, sobbing. When she calmed down, over tea and cookies, she told me everything. She said she never wanted to move to the city. She thought it was cool to visit, but she loved living in her town with her friends. Her mom told her the plan back in February and asked her to play along. Emily tried to say she didn't want to, but Sarah got angry and said Emily didn't value anything she did for her. Sarah repeated that the schools were holding her back and that living with me would set her on a path to success, and if she refused, she was being selfish. In reality, the only one who cared about moving was Sarah. Emily confessed she felt guilty because her mom is always stressed about money and working a lot, and she thought agreeing might make her mom's life easier. She said Sarah coached her on what questions to ask during the interview. She told her to ask about the apartment size and the neighborhood because she needed to know if there was space for both of them eventually. That made my stomach turn. She said that after the interview, Sarah was euphoric. She was looking at job offers in the city and talking about how much better life would be here. She told Emily that once she was settled in my apartment for a few months, Sarah would quit her job and move in too. She'd tell me it was temporary, but once they were already living there, it would be harder for me to kick them out. This confirmed what Teresa told me, but with more details. She also assured Emily that I was too nice to throw them out once they were inside. After the family blow-up, Sarah got worse. At home, she called me names and told Emily I hated her because I was a bitter spinster. She posted things on social media and read the comments out loud, only the ones that supported her, of course. She told Emily I hated her because I thought she was a parasite. The worst part was that Sarah had told several people she would be moving soon because she had a job opportunity. After I said no, Emily had to explain that the move wasn't happening. Lately, Sarah has been planning to try again in a few months, maybe in the summer, with a different angle to make me cave. She mentioned just showing up at my apartment with their things and seeing what happened. But if that didn't work, she wanted to invent an illness for Emily to make it impossible for me to say no. They even planned to make it realistic. Emily thought her mom might hurt her, like break her arm, to use it as an excuse. I don't think Sarah is crazy enough to reach that level, but I can understand why Emily is scared. Emily apologized over and over for being part of the plan. She said she should have refused from the beginning, but it was very hard living with her mom when she got angry. I asked her what she wanted. Not what Sarah or my mom wanted. She said she wanted to stay in her town. Her friends are there, her school is fine, and she likes her life. She also said she didn't want to move 3 hours away from her dad. That was new. I asked about her dad, David. She said he moved recently to about 20 minutes from town, and she sees him on weekends. It's good because they get along well, and she doesn't want to leave him. She said her mom never mentions him when talking about the plan because she can't stand him. She asked me not to tell Sarah she came to the city. She said Sarah would be furious and probably take her phone or ground her for the rest of the year, or worse. She just needed to tell someone what was happening because she felt like she was going to explode from keeping it in. She could have told her dad, but Sarah has majority custody and had threatened several times to lie to take it away completely. I promised I wouldn't tell Sarah, but I had to take her to the bus terminal early in the morning so her mother wouldn't notice. I didn't want her traveling alone at night, and I didn't have a car to drive her back. She agreed to send me constant updates and share her location during the whole trip. Before she left, I wanted more information about her dad, since I don't know him very well. Sarah and David barely speak except for scheduling and child support. I asked if she would like to live with him, and she said as long as she didn't have to move far from her friends and school, it was fine. After she left, I sat in my car in the parking lot for a while. Then I called my brother, Mike, and told him everything. I made him promise not to say anything yet because I didn't want Emily in trouble. Mike offered to have a chat in person with David so he knew what was going on. It's the only help Emily can have there, because we already know whose side my mother is on. I told Mike I didn't have David's number, but he said he'd handle talking to Emily casually to get it. We didn't want to contact David directly without Emily knowing, in case it caused custody issues. I don't know what kind of arrangement they have, so I don't know if I'm standing on solid ground or thin ice. Update 3. This morning I received a message from an unknown number. It was Emily's dad, my former brother-in-law, David. Mike had given him my contact info. He said Emily finally opened up to Mike about what was happening, and then gave Mike her dad's number after making Mike promise not to get David in trouble. David had no idea Sarah was planning to move, and he said he would speak to his lawyer about everything. He added that Sarah had been making it difficult for him to see Emily for months, but Mike was able to find out that she had been threatening Emily with lies to take away his custody. David didn't know about the threats, but now his lawyer is working on the case. He knew Sarah could be difficult, but he didn't know the extent of what was happening. I told him I was glad Emily had someone looking out for her, and that I would keep an eye on her too. I've been texting Emily to ask how she is, but I try to do it when she's at school so her mother can't read them. I don't know if I'm getting her in trouble for receiving messages in class, but for now, it's the safest arrangement. I haven't heard from Sarah. My mom called this morning, but I didn't answer. I have the urge to tell her a few things, but that would reveal we know much more than they think. My mom surely knows about all this, and I don't want to ruin David's chances. My mom left a voicemail saying we needed to talk and that I should stop being so difficult. For now, neither she nor Sarah has discovered that Emily took the bus here. I would have found out otherwise. Mike is working directly with David and is ready to act in an emergency. He is much closer to Emily than I am, though we hope it won't be necessary since her dad is nearby too. crossing my fingers that everything goes well. Update 4. Sarah found out Emily visited me. I never told her, but Emily admitted it during an argument. According to Mike, Sarah lost it. She started shaking Emily, yelling that I was poisoning her mind and that I had told her to run away from home, that it had been my plan all along. That's why she demanded Emily's phone to read our messages. Emily managed to text Mike and her dad before Sarah snatched the phone, but Mike got there first. Mike took the phone from Sarah and then took Emily and some of her things. He could have waited for Emily to pack more, but Sarah was acting aggressive. She threw punches at Mike, better him than Emily, and he couldn't be sure how much longer the situation would hold before spiraling completely. My sister-in-law arrived and put Emily in her car to take her away, while Mike got into his car, taking hits from Sarah. During the drive, Mike called David and informed him what was happening, mostly so he wouldn't go to Sarah's house and encounter her in that state. While all this was happening, I was at work, so I was finding out in pieces. First from my mother, who sent messages and called to tell me Sarah was destroyed by what I had caused. I didn't understand what was happening because I didn't pick up, but later Emily and Mike texted me and brought me up to speed. Finally, David filed for a custody modification. He requested full custody instead of just weekends. His lawyer used Sarah's attempt to relocate Emily without informing him as proof that the current arrangement wasn't working, added to the domestic violence incident. Sarah fought it, but she didn't have much of a defense. Emily was also consulted about who she preferred to live with. Apparently, she said she wanted to stay in her town, but living with her dad wasn't bad if it gave her some stability. There had been more emotional abuse from Sarah than Emily had previously mentioned. I suspected that might be the case, but not to that extent. Nothing physical until that day, but I won't give details out of respect for Emily. Last week, the judge granted David's request. Sarah blamed me for everything. She sent me a text saying I destroyed her life. She lives in a small town, and everyone knows what happened that day when Mike arrived, as well as the fact that she lost custody. I didn't respond. I blocked her, my mom, and my dad. My dad hasn't been very present in this story, but I assume he's on their side. Luckily, none of this seems to be affecting Emily at school. Mike and David are monitoring closely in case of bullying. Her friends are also a great source of support, from what she tells me. Mike and his wife invited me to dinner last weekend. It was the perfect excuse to be with Emily and be at the epicenter of everything, since until now, almost everything has happened hours away. I also got to know David better. He told me about his plans to move closer to town so Emily is closer to her friends in school, since he can make the commute to his work. The issue is that Sarah and my mom are still nearby. For now, David takes her to school in the morning, picking up some of her friends and enduring whatever music is trendy in the car, while Mike or his wife pick her up in the afternoon. She's never home alone. She's always at Mike's or her dad's house. Emily and I are texting often. It wasn't a lie that she wanted to follow in my career footsteps. She just planned to go to a different university with a friend. That's still a long way off, but those are her plans. She talks occasionally with her mother, with whom she has supervised visits, and so far Sarah is acting decent. I'm glad things turned out relatively well. Emily is where she wants to be and safe, which is the most important thing. I kept my space, my privacy, and the ability to pay my rent. Sarah says her life is ruined, but that is entirely her own fault. Yesterday, Emily sent me a photo with her friends at a soccer game. They all looked happy. Then she sent another photo with her dad, Mike, and my sister-in-law and their kids, celebrating the custody win. She's happy, and that makes me happy. She plans to visit me for a week during school break. I'm going to prepare some fun activities. And maybe we'll even have a big sleepover if she brings one of her friends. I just hope this is my last update and there's no more drama. Update 5. Emily spent almost 2 weeks with me. Unfortunately, the friend who was planning to come couldn't make the trip, but it didn't matter much because I think we had fun. We did a few cool things, like going out to eat, walking around the city, and going for runs together. You feel old when you think you're in good aerobic shape and a newly turned 15-year-old leaves you eating dust. I also taught her some things about my work during some freelance projects I had while she was there. So, the visit was good. She also had her birthday party back home, and I traveled to stay at Mike's house for a few days to be present. What wasn't so good were the days for her dad while she was on vacation with me. Sarah must have found out, because she and my mom harassed David to convince Emily to accept a 50-over-50 custody agreement. The harassment ended when the two of them smashed the side mirrors of his car after an argument where he told them no. They both had to pay for the repairs and now have a restraining order, which extends to Emily because David has custody. So not all news is good news, but I think everything is okay despite that. Update 6. I want to write a final update because people are asking, though I don't have much to tell. My mom has stayed away from all the drama after paying for the car repairs and complying with the restraining order. Her reputation was already stained enough. Sarah moved to another city after paying her share of the damages. Not my city, luckily. To be honest, I don't know where, but I'm sure it's not here. Mike still has her on social media just to keep tabs, and based on her photos, it's not near me. Emily is doing well. We talk constantly. She talks to me about boys, though I don't know if I'm the best advisor for that since I've only had a few dates here and there. But if there is one thing I can tell her, it's to use protection. Although, having the mother she has, I think looking at Sarah's life is the best birth control in the world. She sees her mom and what her life became because of a teen pregnancy, and I don't think she wants to repeat that history.